Hey, 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 this is Seagrove, and I am here with three beautiful gentlemen. Um, Let us begin with an introduction and sponsor shoutouts. We're going to do both at the beginning. Stefan, why don't you start?
Yep. Hello, I'm Stéphane, currently ranked number one in Europe,
Dab on
uh,
them.
the runner-up at Oceania Internationals and all that. I don't have a team to shout out right now because I don't have a team at all, but I'm a writer for Poke Beach, so you can check out my articles there.
Awesome. Xander.
I'm Xander Pero, 17th in North America,
Oof.
and I'm a writer at Sick Prizes, and I have a ton of articles there in like the past couple of years.
You've been playing a lot of chess recently, right?
Yes,
How's that
I've
going?
been writing chess. It's been good. When I was playing a lot during the year, at the end of the school year, I was doing pretty well, but then I took a short break, and now I'm on the decline again. But I have nothing else to do now, so it's time to get back on the grind.
Awesome. Pram.
Uh, Hello. I'm on Team ARG, so check them out. They're coming out with a new game called Argent Saga, which is kind of cool. Um, in terms of my rank, I'm not really sure where I am in the top 16, but it's not 17th, but it's above that. So we got that
I
going
got you.
for
Here,
us.
I'll check.
I'm currently higher than Xander.
Currently higher than Xander, and I played a pay to win deck at Addison. So
Yeah, that's exciting. So let's
You're
talk
spoke.
Madison. Speaking of, you got fourth, third, something like that.
third, yeah,
Third, awesome. And
yeah.
you did that with
I was seated
Charizard.
higher than Xander when we lost.
Yes.
Ooh, just as that's going to be the theme of this one: higher than Xander. Uh, so, so you played Charizard, and you were the only person there playing Charizard, right? No, there was a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
Charizard. So Charizard seems to be the most popular deck. Is that what you expect for NAIC?
I think people will just. I think they will play a lot of like Weezing and Zoroark for like at least day one.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like people for like a lot of maybe like newer players love Weezing because it's like all you do is you just sit there, you do 40 and you spread, and there's not really a lot of decision making to do.
Okay,
And I also think Charizards are hard to get right now. So
true.
if you're not willing to fork over like $40 for a single, it's kind of like a crapshoot whether you get it or not.
So we saw greens be like super hyped going in, but then Turbo sort of took over. Is Turbo definitely the variant?
I think it's definitely better than the greens variant. One of the reasons is mirror match because like you can just Kiawe and then they have to do like welder, and then you're like, all right, Guzma, your guy, and on turn two, and they're like, well, I have to welder again before I can even do anything. So
Okay. Xander, we saw Blacephalon win. Was
Yeah.
that just a meta call, or is Blacephalon still quote unquote dead?
I think Blacephalon is going to be a good deck to play, especially with the Persian GX because it guarantees B string,
Mm-hmm.
and that's basically what I think puts the deck back on the map again. Is that against some matchups like Pikaram or Reshiram, it was pretty easy to just let loose them into like a bad hand when you were going to go into the B string turn. But now with Persian, there's no way to do that really. So then it's pretty easy for them to have good matchups against the tag team decks like Pikaram and then Reshiram Charizard. So I think it's still going to be good going into NAIC, and then also is a deck from older sets, so people would have those cards, so it might be more popular.
Okay. Stefan, if you had to pick one of the fire decks, what's the best fire deck?
I think Reshizard is better overall. The second is good, but I don't know. It doesn't have the same. I mean, I think it's weak to some other stuff. If you like decks that can skip the B-string turns, of stuff like this. Also, as Andrea said, that you can use Person GX to guarantee the B-string, which, okay, it does help, but what if they just KO the Person GX instead of Blacephalon?
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that people tend to do, well, try to do if they can. Person is always a good target. I don't know, I feel like Reshizard has like there's more options to play it, more stuff you can do with it, and like also it's gonna be played more, so
Yeah.
I probably do better in the end.
Okay. Stéphane, another question for you. Looking at Zoroark, what do you think is the best variant and why?
All right, so I am a huge fan of Dugong.
Okay.
So Zoroark, Dugong, Person GX. Like to be honest, I don't think Slowking is great. It's really here only as a counter to Reshizard and only Reshizard, and it doesn't even work that well since it lost the two Zoroark decks made top 8 lost to Reshizard
Right.
in top 8 in Medicine. And Dugong has a lot more versatility. It's not just a counter to Dugong or Fairy decks or whatever. It's good in the mirror match. It's good against Malamar. It's good against Pikarom. It's good against like basically everything. You can do a lot of stuff. You can skip Sledgehammer turns by taking 2 prizes. You can like make Wishful Battle not work against Squagnag by getting knockouts on the bench, stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
It really brings a lot of options to the deck.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's better.
Pram, what about you in terms of Zoroark?
I think the Zoroark version is probably the best build. In terms of like what you can go with it after that, it's more Zoroark has turned more into like a box deck.
Right.
So like you kind of just build it to what the meta says. But like you don't even need to build 3 Zoroarks anymore. You can just go like 2 Zoroarks and a Persian, and then like you just kind of go from there. And then Persian lets you play a bunch of tech cards. So like I think Zoroark right now is just all about like predicting the meta and then making your deck fit that meta.
So if you had to do that right now, do you think Dugong is the way to go?
You'd have to do something about EV Snorlax because it's the main killer of the deck right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have to probably put in some like fighting Pokemon at the very least. Yeah. And also fighting Pokemon also splashes on Pika, so
yeah,
it's like a dual purpose kind of thing. I think you need to play like water and fighting Pokemon to like have a chance against Reshizard.
Okay. Xander, what are your thoughts on Zoroark?
The only one that I ran into was the Zoro Persian Slowking. And then I think one cool card that Patrick was playing is he was playing a Water Energy. So then with the Slowking, he could Memory Melt against Stall. And so I think if I was going to play Zoroark, I would be playing at least one Slowking, either as like one Slowking and then one Water Energy to be able to do that against Stall is a nice win tactic. Or with like the Dugong, as Stéphane was saying. But I think I would just play this Slowking with the Water and then probably the Marowak to try and increase my Reshizard matchup, which would sacrifice like Dugong's versatility. But then I would have both the Water and Fighting Pokemon, as Pram says, to like deal with Reshizard and Pikarom. And then also Marowak could come in handy for Mirror and stuff like that.
Okay, I want to do something I haven't done before on one of these. I want each of you to talk about a deck that you played recently, preferably at Madison or another big tournament, but like even at a cup if you find that more interesting. I want you to talk about what you lost to, the deck you played, what you lost to, and that matchup and why you lost, or what made that matchup difficult. Xander, I'll start with you.
All right, so I played Pikarom at Madison and got top 4, losing to Azul. Throughout the tournament, I lost to Azul once and then Patrick once, who was playing Zoroark Persian Slowking. Mm-hmm. I lost to Patrick because he was able to 2-shot my Pikarom because I had to swing with it on turn 2 instead of it like the Zapdos or something like that. And then the other game, I just had a pretty poor start, and then he was able to just roll through me. So that matchup against Zoroark really just comes down to like swinging with a Zapdos first, taking another prize somewhere on like a basic Pokemon with a Guzma, and then killing 2 GX Pokemon because you want to delay the catwalk as long as possible. And then losing to Azul on top 4. The first game was because I had a bit of a clunky start, and he got the first Guzma on my Pikachu Zekrom. Mm-hmm. And then in Game 3, I prized the Coco Prism Star, when otherwise that would have been just a complete steamroll. But what I think that matchup comes down to is really just being able to attack their Reshizard first, because then you get the full blitz, you can put the energy somewhere else, and then they have to they're on the back foot basically, and they have to welder to other Pokemon to attack. And they can really only hit with Reshizard, whereas with Pikarom, you can hit with Zoroark, you can hit with Koko GX. And so I think it just didn't work out that way. Or whereas he got the first Guzma and then it was really hard to come back from that. But then as long as you're both setting up equally, then it should be in Pikarom's favor because there's more tools to the deck.
Stéphane, a tournament you've played in recently, what you played against, and how you feel about those matchups.
Yeah, so we haven't had major events in Europe since Unbroken Bones. So the only decks, like the only events I've played were a League Challenge and 2 League Cups. And I play Zoroark in all of them, and I also won all of them. So, yeah, I lost basically one match, which was against Pikarom. That was when I wasn't running Mew, so he could... I had if I remember, I had a bad start in one game, and the other one he just managed to take a 3 or 4 price turn with Tackle GX. Overall, Pikarom is not so if you don't run Mew, which I didn't want to play that day, the matchup is not... the Pikarom matchup can be an issue for Zoroark, but it's not unwinnable either. Like with Mew, I think it's favored. Without Mew, you still have a shot. You need to... they need to not have a great start. And what I do is I run Larvitar in the deck. So with Dugong, you spread 60 damage to, typically Pikarom. Like 2 Pikarom if you can, but sometimes it's just like 1 Pikarom and 1 Zoroark or Detene or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then Larvitar with Choice Band or Kukui knocks out the Pikarom. So this basically gives you a way to get the knockout. You can also use Person GX with Choice Band, Kukui, and 9 Pokemon you discard. Vengeance deals 240 damage. So you can knock out even a full health Pikarom this way. Mm. And basically there's Zoroark as a whole is a very very situation. Like you have to play to adapt to whatever the situation is.
Right.
So if you can set up Muck before they have their big turns with Tapu Prism Stars, ability, and so on, it's great because they can never set up very well. Otherwise, you let them put energy, you put Mew so they cannot tag Ball GX. You just try to set up not get run over by their speed, and if you do that, you should be able to retaliate against their attacks.
And how important is the Mew?
It kind of is important because you often have to bench either Tapu Lele or Dedenne in the beginning to set up. So, and that just gives them the possibility to get a 4 price turn, with Tackle GX. So if you don't have Mew, you need to either set up Mud before they can typical Prism Star and just take the lead in prizes, so they can never just do full blitz into Tackle GX for 5 prizes. Or you need to do something like you spread damage with Dugong and then they take 1 or 2 prizes with full blitz and then you judge or something like this, so you try to make them break somehow. Mm-hmm. When you take the KO and Pikarom, but it's harder.
Pram, if you can, talk to us about your recent tournament, I guess Madison preferably, and the deck and the matchups.
So I played Reshizard's EV Snorlax, and the deck was really good. I only lost twice, and they were both to the same deck, Blacephalon. First time I lost was round 5 to Zach Lesage, and then the next time I lost was in top 4, T and Rob. Mm-hmm. The matchup is... I think it's kind of Blacephalon favored for sure. Mainly because you only have 2 Pokemon you can attack with, which is Charizard, and then they take you, so you have to attack them at the very least 3 times, or they only have to attack you twice, which is the main thing. The thing to watch out for if you're Blacephalon is don't bench Persian GX too early, because Charizard, if they go Guzma Persian, Marshadow into Flare Strike, then the game gets really ugly for Blacephalon. But as long as they don't do that, The matchup's pretty favored for Blacephalon, I think. Unless the game gets weird, like it did against me and Ian's game. Like, all 3 games were just super weird. Like, I started Mark Shadows twice. He started, like, he just didn't do... We both didn't do anything for a while, and then it came down to a confusion flip. But I think generally if both players draw normal, basically the game flow goes like this. Like, they'll GX, and then you'll knock them out with Flare Strike, then they'll Beast Ring, and then KO your Charizard, and then you can GX them, and then you're at 2, and then if they have like a Welder, you lose. Okay. If they go Blacephalon Welder, you lose. So that's how I think it is, and how it would like generally plays out. So you have to like make the matchup weird for you to like win, and it's kind of just making that happen is hard.
So as Blacephalon, do you just bench a couple Meowth?
And you bench Meowth and a Ditto.
And then just you do that after they've taken.
Yeah. So you go Burst, and then you just sit there with a Meowth and a Ditto, and then then they'll be like they're gonna Marshadow you anyways. And even also if you also play Muck in your deck as well. Now your deck's getting a little techy, right. But if you also play Muck and then you have a Meowth on the bench, then there's like no way Charizard will like mess with your hand up. So like if you just hold Persian until but then because like just knocking out Meowth by itself isn't gonna like advance the game state for Charizard, right. Not really. So Meowth is generally pretty safe, and then once you get the Catwalk, it's like game over.
Okay, cool. How do you feel about Charizard going forward? Do you think it's a strong play for NAIC?
I don't know. I think it's kind of in a state of like I'm not sure whether it's like tier 1 or if it just gets countered out. I think it probably just gets countered out. Okay. Because there are a lot of things you can do to beat Charizard. It's just like whether people play those cards or decks. Yeah. So.
Stéphane, I think I know the answer to you with Zoroark. You feel like it's a great play. Is that right?
I mean, do you want to add anything to that? It's my favorite deck to play right now, and I mean, it's too early to tell, but there's a good chance that I end up playing it, yeah.
Xander, how do you feel about Pikarom?
I think that it's in a weird spot. Now that it did well again, people are going to think that it's back on the map and start playing counters. Like, even if it's just adding the Mew to the Zoroark deck, then that matchup just gets swung 10% in the other way. And little things like that. Like, it doesn't need Tag Bolt now, but I think people will just start playing decks that have better matchups against Pikarom, like Pram was saying, is that if a lot of people in the room are expecting Pikarom, they're just going to choose a deck that does slightly better against it than the deck they might play otherwise. And then that changes the Pikarom record from being like barely into top 8 to like in top 32 or top 64 or whatever like that. So I think that the traditional Pikarom build that I played probably won't work, but then if there's some innovation to it, whether with like the 3 Zapdos deck that was doing well in South America or just whatever modifications to it, it needs like some additional boost to get it going.
Okay. Think about what the best deck in the format is, what's the second best deck in the format, and what's the third best deck in the format. Don't say it, just think about it. Okay? Now, we're going to go around and we're going to start with the third best deck. Pram, what's the third best deck in the format?
Zoroark.
Xander.
Reshizard.
Stéphane.
Pikarom.
All different answers. I wonder if... okay, what's 2? Pram.
2 is Reshi.
Xander.
Zoroark.
Stéphane.
Zoroark.
Okay, and what's 1?
Reshizard. Sorry.
Reshizard?
One. I think 1 is. I actually think it's Blacephalon, which sucks to say.
I think it's Blacephalon too.
Okay. So
it actually hurts inside to say say that out loud.
So what makes it so good?
It's just like in a great spot for the meta, right? So like, tag team decks are kind of dominant. And because tag team decks are dominant, it's kind of like why single prize attackers were good in a GX dominated field. It's just like you're shifting the number of prize taken from 2 to 3 and then 1 to 2. So it's like the same kind of concept. And then you're just so good at doing giant amount of damage for one attack. And then you can, and even if you get punished for it, you're only losing 2 prizes instead of 3. And then like you have a GX move that like just takes a prize turn 2 or turn 1, depending if you want first or second, and which makes it so you only have to knock out 1 GX and then 1 tag team, and then the game's over. So you only have to attack twice against a lot of decks, which is really good. And there's a lot of, because the deck is so simple, there's a lot of room to like make it like innovation for like the Persian GX, or you can play disruption like Muck. So I think it's just in a really good spot. You can also run Mew to help your Pika matchup, which I think swings the matchup from like super Pika favored to like really yikes for Pika.
Yes.
Okay, and Xander, you said Blacephalon. Why do you say that?
Basically the same thing that Michael said, is that with the tag team decks being like the 2 dominant or like 2 staple decks alongside Zoroark, it's like Blacephalon is just going to be trading even prizes, or just going to be going ahead in the prize race, because unlike Baby Blacephalon, which also has like the 50 times fire attack, Big Blounds isn't reliant on like a large hand. So like it can sort of basically just set up checkmate with Naganadels and stuff like that. So it's a more consistent deck than Baby Blounds, but then is still able to win the prize trade. And then also Burst GX is just really good for, like Michael was saying, like against Pikaram or Reshizard, you just kill 1 tag team, a GX, and then you just have the Burst GX to finish, so, or win with the beginning. So it's just really it's not versatile. The deck isn't versatile. It's just incredibly strong at what it does, and is as fast, if not faster, and more consistent at doing lots of damage than the tag team decks.
And Stéphane, why'd you say Reshizard?
I feel like it's like it has so much going for it. You can, okay, so yeah, it can be countered like
Pram
like Xander and Pram said. You can counter it, and maybe Blacephalon has a good matchup. I haven't tested this matchup specifically, so I don't know actually how good it is for Blacephalon. Maybe it's better, but I think in the end of the day, you'll see like the consistency of big tag team Pokemon win out. It's like, for example, at UIC where we saw Pikaram have a big comeback. Pikaram was doing well, but it wasn't doing that well just before that. And suddenly we saw it, like a bunch of good players, all picked up the deck again for UIC because, in such a big tournament with such various people from all over the world, and you don't know what everyone's going to play, having this simple, linear, aggressive deck. I say linear because you can just deal some big damage, but you can also just have some options whether you play, I don't know, Miltank, Power Plant, whatever. That's something that tends to do well as internationals. And so I think that the same thing might happen at NAIC, but with Reshizard this time, which is the new main tag team Pokemon.
Right. So going into NAIC, this is probably going to be... I kind of don't think it's going to beat last year's, but I think it will be close. And who knows, it might. I just have a feeling. But it's going to be a very large tournament either way. Any tips on approaching a large tournament, whether that be in testing, in deck choice, in mental or physical preparation? Any tips in approaching a tournament this size that you might not at maybe a medium regional?
So one thing you want to do is make sure you're playing a deck you're comfortable with. You have a lot of rounds to play, so if you're playing something new, if you're playing something you're not familiar with, you may drop a few rounds just because you're inexperienced with the deck, which will totally ruin your tournament. So playing something you're familiar with is good, and whether that means you need to put in time beforehand, or you're playing something you already know. That's up to you as a player. And then just realizing that the day one does not end the tournament. So even if you have a record to make day two, if your goal is to win the tournament, then you probably don't want you probably want to consider not taking the ID at round 9.
Yeah.
Because playing playing for day 2 at 19 points compared to even 20, 21 is a huge difference. Like there are people who went like it's like they went like 4-1 at Madison and they just can't make top 8. Like at 19 points, it's like it's insane. That
is insane
because so many people are taking draws. It's like they're just eliminating. It's like 20 people just eliminated themselves from the tournament at round 9.
Busted. Well,
it's like if you like think about it like objectively, it's actually like insane.
Well, I think it's probably different goals would be my guess. Like it might be a goal to make top 32 or
sure.
2.
But my point is more of if your goal is to win the tournament,
absolutely.
Maybe reconsider that idea at round 9.
Yeah.
Because it's very tempting, but if your goal is to win, then
Xander, Stéphane, any tips for such a large tournament?
I think what Michael said about comfort is really important, especially for large tournaments like regionals. You really just need to play a deck, or regionals and ICs. You really need to play a deck that you're comfortable with, even if it's not the strongest deck. You having the strongest deck for that tournament doesn't really matter until the end of day 2 usually. Because if you as a good player can come in piloting a strong deck, you should be able to go 6-2-1, make day 2, and have a strong tournament. You might not win the tournament. Like, you need to have the best deck and the best deck, best list, and a little bit of luck to win the tournament. Or to make top finals, top 4, top 8, whatever. But as long as you're playing a deck that you know how to play that isn't completely terrible, or you don't have luck go completely the other way, then you should be fine to get points, get your invite if that's what you're going for, or to even like make day 2 and get some money.
Stéphane, anything to add?
Yeah, not really. I agree with these points. If you if you're not a beginner, but someone who has trouble getting to making day 2, like maybe you've made day 2 at one regionals, but you struggle to get back again. Often, like something that can help is like trying to play basically don't try to win with a surprising rock deck or something, and just play a consistent list, especially for a big event like this. I'm not saying to change at the last minute, although if you're going to change at the last minute, it's better to change for a consistent deck than adding some text.
Right.
But yeah, if you you still have some time right now to prepare, and often like the secrets to doing well is just playing a deck that's well known, that's reliable, even if it's not going to be the biggest surprise, even if you're not going to impress anyone with because you're already playing ZapBeasts or Reshizard or whatever usual deck. It's often it can help you. I've known several players basically who started doing better once they stopped trying to play some weird rock decks. Otherwise, the classic advice for such big tournaments is get some rest before. Don't try to go in with 3 hours of sleep. Some people manage it, but in general, people play worse. Try to stay hydrated, have a bottle of water, have some snacks for the day, and prepare on yourself. It's a long day ahead.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about either the deck that you think will be the most prevalent or the deck you just don't want to lose to in general. Xander, what do you think?
I think the deck I don't want to lose to would either be Reshizard or Blacephalon, just because those are 2 decks that if I'm paired against like a random player, those decks have relatively lower skill floors. So it's pretty easy to pick up the deck and do somewhat well with it, even if you're inexperienced. So I would want to be able to win those matchups pretty comfortably, or at least have them favorable so that if my opponent does make a mistake, then it's still possible to win that game. Because if I'm playing the deck that just auto-lose to like a fire deck, it doesn't matter. Like, I would rather auto-lose to a deck that takes skill to play than like fire, which is easier. So then I would be losing to good players with that if I pair into one, rather than like losing round 1 or round 2 early on in the tournament, and then being limited by the matchups that I play against.
I think that's the best answer I've ever had to that question.
Nice.
Normally it's like, I hate mill or something like, which is fine. But Stéphane, any deck you don't want to lose to, or what do you think is going to be the most popular that you watch it
I
out
don't
for?
know. So I actually don't know have statistics about what is played in total. I don't know, but I think Reshizard is obviously going to be popular. I think that by now most people who want to play the deck will have the cards for the deck. We have a bunch of deck lists available, so people know how to build a deck. So I think it's going to be played a lot, especially given its success in Medicine. Um, so yeah, I would like Xander said, I don't want to play a deck that has a bad Reshizard matchup. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's basically it, I think.
Prim.
Yeah, I think I'm also on board with the don't lose the fire mentality. Those decks are going to be pretty big. Another deck that it's like I also want to at least have a game against is Weezing. Just because I think the deck is so easy to pilot and it's so inexpensive to play that at least day one it'll be huge. Well, relatively huge.
How good is Mew against Weezing? How much does it help?
Not good. It depends on what deck you're running. So if you're running Zoroark, Mew's really good. If any other but if you're running a basic deck, it doesn't really do anything. Just because it basically stops one attack and then spell tag kills it. So the Mew doesn't really help, but things like Melt Tank and Reshizard does help a lot.
Okay.
But just being able to beat Weezing because the skill floor is so low with the deck that it's just you can't. I mean, they're not gonna outplay you. You're just either gonna win or you lose, and and so I think that because there's a very low skill ceiling too, it's why I probably won't make day two in a big number. But I think just trying to get out day one, losing to Weezing is not a great strategy.
Yeah.
But I think that Weezing is a deck that has started to struggle precisely because people, as you said, it's very limited. They're not you don't have a lot of options with this deck, and I think people have learned how to play against it. Not to overbench, keeping the stadiums to counter shrine, stuff like that. So, I mean, I do agree with you, but I just feel that lots of decks can beat Weezing when they are played properly.
So, in terms of mill, what is the best mill deck for NAIC? Stéphane.
Oh, so just because I'm European, I'm supposed to know about mill now?
Well, I was going to give it to everybody.
No,
But...
actually, so that's actually a good
well,
question
you're right.
Because, I'm really not a mill or stall specialist. So the only thing I can do is say that for now we've seen, I guess, Baltloom and Lucario Melmetal is the only mill deck that has had success, I think. Unless, do you count Shedinja as mill or
Count what, mill?
Shedinja?
Yeah, I would.
Okay,
There's control.
I changed my answer to Shedinja. I think Shedinja is interesting, although I disagree. I'm not I prefer the original list to the one with that was played that DDG played in was it Santa Clara? I think it was Santa Clara.
Was it Madison? Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't know. I feel like Slowking is better than Persian. And the Trumbic hiker strategy, Trumbic hiker or the ice peak, whatever. I think it's interesting, but I'm not sure it's better than the strategy of just trying to memory melt the Guzma and the field blowers and the other 9 cards.
Xander, what's the best mill or control deck?
I have no experience, but I would say I think Shedinja is a stronger deck than just the traditional Lucario Melmetal Weep Stall because it can play Slowking and Persian or Rhyperior or Diglett or Hiker Trumbeak, whatever. They're better way. It's it's a stall deck more than a mill deck but you're still trying to like run your opponent out of resources. And I think Shedinja can auto win more decks than the traditional stall now that some people are just playing soft counters. Like Shedinja, you just automatically win because your deck is so consistent at getting up Shedinjas with like 4/4 Substrika and whatever else. It's so like if your opponent just doesn't play enough outs to Shedinja, then you just automatically win.
Mm-hmm.
And so, barring the greatest of dead draws, that's just not going to happen. You're just going to have some free wins. Like you might go 3-0 just because you play 3 times. Comparing that with traditional stall struggles against Reshizard, whereas Shedinja just destroys it. So I think the matchups for Shedinja and Reshizard, or Shedinja and traditional stall, are different, like across the board. And Shedinja being able to auto-win more of the popular decks is probably more relevant and makes it a stronger choice than Lucario, Melmetal, Koopa stuff.
All right, Pram.
Yeah, I think Shedinja is probably also like the strongest mill deck, but at the same time, it also takes the longest to win. So you have to like play very aggressively fast.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like if your opponent even just like has to think about their turn, you're running the risk of like an 0-0 tie.
Right.
So
So
you really have to play really fast with the deck in order to do well with it. And yeah, that's pretty much the only like downside to Shedinja, other than people just playing like an absurd amount of like blowers or something. But I don't see that happening.
Okay, Pram, what's the best deck you will not be playing at NAIC?
The best deck I won't be playing. Oof. That's a tough one because I'm pretty open. I actually don't mind any of like the top four: Pika, Rush, Zoro, or Plus F1. I guess the deck I definitely won't be playing is Weezing.
Okay. Stéphane,
but I think all the other decks are pretty good.
Yeah, awesome. Stéphane, what's the best deck that you will definitely not be playing at NAIC?
So is that definitely as in 100%, which I'm pretty
100%.
sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I won't be playing Pikaram.
Okay.
I think it's good, but I think it's like people are gonna add Mew to their decks, and I don't know. I just don't really enjoy the deck that much.
Okay. Xander.
I will not be playing Reshizard.
Good.
Because I'd rather play a deck that gives me more options. Like I think Pikaram is the Reshizard deck that has more options at its disposal.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you just had more decisions to make. Like you have Zapdos, you have 2 prize attackers as well that are like pretty easy to power up and as strong with like Zoroark GX. Yeah, I wouldn't play Reshizard because I would prefer to be playing a deck that has more options. And even if it's incredibly strong, I'd rather be playing a deck that has, I don't know, me in control of it, just for some convoluted reason. I would rather just be making decisions and losing by misplays rather than losing by matchups or poor draws, whatever else.
The captain of your own soul.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we did shout outs at the beginning, so thank you guys so much for your time. Good luck to everybody going to NAIC. May the draws be ever in your favor. Shout out to Stéphane for being up so late, as it is in Europe.
It's not even 3 a.m. I'm fine.
Yeah, no big deal. Thank you guys again for your time, and peace out. Shout out to my patrons, Caleb Vance, Dan Nelson, Pokestats. Thank you guys so much. And Alex Haney and Daniel. Appreciate it a lot. Steve, Enrico, Jess Swinson, Stéphane Ivanoff, Cecil, Gabe, Will, and Brian. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, supporting me, and helping me continue to produce content, which I believe is beneficial for people who are watching. Thanks again. Peace out.